So, okay, we're here for Adventure Corner and Adventure Gamers. Welcome to you. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Vampyr with your own words.
Hi, I'm Grégory Szucs. I'm the art director on Vampyr for DONTNOD. And Vampyr is an upcoming RPG set in London 1918, just after the First World War and during the worst pandemic the world has ever known, the Spanish flu. You play as Dr. Jonathan Reed, who's just back from the war and wakes up in a mass grave as a vampire. So he's going to have a lot of things to figure out.
I noticed one thing about the atmosphere and the imagery. It seems like it's pretty old school when it comes to vampire stories. So which movies or books do you consider an influence?
Well, the idea was to go back to the romantic gothic tragic figure of the vampire and to forget about the last decade of movies about vampires.
That's good.
So definitely we looked at the whole vampire mythos and we used all the reference we love from before, the Anne Rice book, Interviews with the Vampire, the movie too, of course Dracula, but other more exotic things like Byzantium, The Strain recently.
The game is not an open world game. How did you come up with that decision?
It's not a fully open world with lots of kind of wasteful areas that you have to drone through. It's a semi-open world, so you are free to roam anywhere you want in London. There are some places that you won't be able to access right away, but for the most part you are free to roam. We choose that formula because I think it's the best balance between interesting content and freedom to roam around, so that there's less waste and more attention to everything you can do in the world.
But are there going to be side quests nevertheless?
Definitely. There's the main narrative storyline, the main arc you have to go through to complete the game, but as you will meet the London citizens, you will be free to engage with them and go deeper, see what their personal stories are, get involved or not, kill them, help them, whatever. There's a lot of things to discover in each neighborhood.
And I found out that each citizen has a name. There's no nameless citizen, and each one has its own backstory, just like you told me. How do players find out about these backstories, and how do these backstories affect the decisions players have to make?
Well, I guess you could just go up and talk to them. Yeah. And then you can observe overhearing situation, people arguing in the streets, or clues that you find, and maybe your own vampiric powers will help you extract some information from people. There's lots of ways to get to know these people.
And so let's talk about consequences a little bit. Can you tell us a bit about the kind of consequences there are?
Yep. In 1918, the time Vampyr is set, London is undergoing a great deal of stress and troubles. It's just after the First World War, so there's been a lot of casualty. Not a lot of bombings, maybe one or two only, but a lot of casualties. Yeah. And there's the Spanish flu, and it's a second wave, and it's the worst pandemic the world has ever known. Okay, so it's not the best time to live in. The world still feels alienated from the Industrial Revolution, the killing on a massive scale. So when you go to an area that has been like traditionally poor, like Whitechapel, and you add the casualties from the war, and you add the casualties from the flu, you see it's almost going to break already. And you come in there as a vampire, and if you, I guess, kill the remaining pillars of that community, you can really topple the whole thing and destroy it.
And can you tell us a little more about the vampire abilities? You know, like kind of the skills that people can level up?
Well, you will have different skill trees. And It's an RPG, so you can choose where you go, where you specialize in them. It mostly revolves around your vampiric powers and the field. There's a mode blood-related path you can go, a mode mind-oriented, a more shadow-oriented tree. Most of them are useful in combat, some are useful in other situations. Especially with the citizen you will meet. I can go into more detail right now, but...
And I read a little bit about the ability to mesmerize, and that was pretty interesting, and it seems to be quite important for the game. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, it's going to be tremendously important because it's the way you can try and control people's mind. And you see, as you get to know people, you get clues about their lives, and your ability is limited and it will be tested against their will. And as you get more clues, you can use those clues as leverage to make your power stronger. Yeah. So that's the way you're going to be forcing people to do things, extracting more information from them.
Can you please explain the fighting system a little bit?
Well, the idea of the fight revolves around being an incentive for you to kill people. Because when you kill someone and drink their blood, you go stronger really, really fast. You get a tremendous surge of power. And the combat is the stage where you can let those power go and express all those those flashy vampiric abilities.
You know, and I had this strange thought about GTA in my mind. I remember that way back, like from the very first GTA, how fascinating it was when you killed someone and the police showed up. Is it kind of similar like in Vampire? The more people you kill, the bigger trouble you get, like from the police or from vampire hunters, or...
There are people that are out there to get you. Yeah. It's not the police, it's a special faction. They're out there to get you. But there's no kind of stealth-based element in Vampire. Yeah. You maintain cover at all points. It is paramount to your inquest and to progress in the story that you are still a functioning human being in the society. You use your doctor position, the fact that you come from a higher layer of society, to move around and get invited into people's houses. You kill people and take risks with the neighborhood. Things will change, and you will have to face different situations. But there's no, you're not going to be that pushed by the police.
Okay. What kind of weapons are players going to be able to use?
Well, you've been a field surgeon in the war, you've gained some combat experience, and you have a lot of tools from your bag of medicines, I guess. Yeah. So you will have a wide variety of tools. I guess you can find slashing tools, piercing tools, blunt weapons, things that you kind of craft by yourself. Weapons, ranged weapons too, a wide variety of guns, shotguns. I guess you can even craft crossbows, things like that. But it will take a support role to your vampiric abilities.
And so, I mean, Vampire seems to be set in a pretty realistic world, considering that it's a vampire world. So I guess there are no rocket launchers or something like that. It's a pretty realistic set of weapons.
It doesn't tread into the fantasy aspect or the sci-fi aspect in that direction. It's kind of Uchronia. It's based on London 1918. And you add that vampire mythos layer on top of it, and you go from there. But there's no Tesla fantasy element over it.
And I was wondering, you mentioned the Spanish influenza. What happens to Jonathan if he bites someone who is infected?
You have to try that. And one thing you can figure out really quick is that people that are ill do not yield as high quality of blood as healthy people. Yeah. So, but I guess you can still feed upon them, yes.
Okay. When people hear DONTNOD, they may not be aware that there's not just one team at DONTNOD. So the Vampyr team is not the same team that developed Life is Strange, but a lot of people worked on Remember Me.
There are always more than one thing going on in DONTNOD. A lot of people move from project to project because they do not start at the same time. Yeah. So a lot of the talents that work on Life is Strange are also worked on Vampyr, and will work on future DONTNOD projects too.
What do you think were the most important things that DONTNOD learned about Remember Me and Life is Strange, and that you're also trying to use in Vampyr?
Well, it's about what the DONTNOD core is about. I mean, it's always been about a strong story, strong narrative that will ask tough questions to the player. It was the case in Remember Me. It was the whole idea of what if, asking tough questions. And it's the same thing in Vampyr, except that in Life is Strange, you can try things around, go back and forth. Vampyr, it's a one-way street. Yeah. You have to make really difficult choice, and there's no going back. You have to live with those consequences forever until the end of the game.
Yeah. And Life is Strange was a very, very emotional experience. And I'm under the impression, maybe I'm wrong, but like Vampyr also has like a very dramatic core, you know, and that it's pretty sad. Actually, it's a pretty sad story if you think about the main character. So would you say it is also quite emotional game?
Well, definitely, but it's not the same tone. I say Vampyr is more like a journey to hell. You can try to find redemption, but you will find as a vampire you can mostly go down, and you can try to go slower, but it's a journey to hell.
Yeah, is there any hint you can give us about what the other team is working on right now?
Absolutely not.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
I was afraid you were going to say that. Two last quick questions. Is there going to be a German version of Vampyr? I mean, either like voice recordings or subtitles? Anything you can say about that?
The plan right now is to have all the voiceover in English, and yes, there will be a localization, I guess that's a word, in many languages, including German.
Yeah. And the game is going to be released in 2017, hopefully, on PS4, on Xbox One and PC. And is there anything more specific that you might be able to say than but 2017?
Nope.
Okay, well, I had to try it. But thank you very much. It was a real pleasure. We're very much looking forward to Vampyr. Thank you.